Welcome back, and on our repair bench today is a Tron PCB set. This Tron is for Simon at Four Quarters Bar in London, and it's not booting up. And here's what happens: switch on, and that's all we get. I'll try pressing the reset button a few times there, and nothing happens. This is you can tell the ribbon cables are quite old on this. I'm going to suggest a new set of ribbons whilst I'm at it to him. Doesn't look like there's any huge problems with it. Can be one or two things. Usual culprits are either CPU's completely dead, or the RAM or the CTC's having a problem. But the CTC usually comes into it, which is the counter timer chip, comes into it a bit later down the circuit, so you usually get expected to get to the grid pattern and then dry. Okay, seen a few Trons before. Hopefully this isn't going to be a stupendously long, convoluted one. The good thing is we are seeing black background, which is good, which usually means that chip there, which is a pain in the ass to get hold of, isn't dead. Not seeing any other weird stuff go on, so I'm going to check. I'm going to guarantee that the clock circuit's there, but the watchdog's going woof, 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 woof. So we will very likely just stick the fluke on it, read the ROMs, read the RAMs, and see what's going on there. It could be stupendously simple. Well, we won't know until we start looking. Let's get set up. First step, fluke's installed. We've got that on there. And can I do a run UUT? Nope, I can't. So it's not the Z80 CPU is the first thing. Okay, let's see what else we can find out. Start verifying some ROMs. We have verified all these EPROMs perfectly. We are now moving on to the RAM, which is this chip. I think it's that one there. Yep. And straight away we get a stuck set of bits. Yay, BTS FF. So, read write error. So what we'll do is do write at C00055, read read C000 FF. So we're not getting any data bus in and out of that RAM there. Okay, well that's fine. Time for a bit of it's time for an oscilloscope probe and a quick look at schematics. I think, if memory serves from doing mine, I think that there's a 245 chip here which is responsible for that. I'll have a look at the inputs and the outputs. Sorry, let me go back again a second here. See if I can do it without that horrible sound my mouth keeps making. There's an LS245 chip here, which is an I/O buffer. And I think that either that's stuck, or that RAM's dead, or the chip select's not moving. I will know in a few minutes' time when I poke around on the scope. So let's do that and see where we are. Okay, we have progress. So, this RAM here, pin 18, so I can find that. 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, which is chip select, is not moving. Chip select is off pin 15 of this chip here, F1, 16, 15, which is, oh, hang on, that seems to be moving. Oh, I might have just backtracked into my investigation, quite interestingly. Or I might be looking at the wrong output. Let me find the point on the schematic. I might be talking complete cod shit here. Let's go over here. Bit I'm looking at is B2 RAM. That's F6 RAM. Wrong one. Oh, this PC's painfully slow for this. Zoom out a bit. Micro reset, F1. And is that B2? Yeah, B2 RAM. B2 RAM, yeah, comes off. Aha, sorry, pin 14. Oh no, definitely pin 15. Pin 15 should be CS RAM on F1. So if I'm definitely looking at F1, 4055 chip, F1 here, this one is F1, definitely, pin 15 on F1. Is definitely cycling low. If I go here and press the stop key, it stops. So I've pressed the stop on the fluke. So it's either that there's no connection between there and there, which is the common cause on these boards. I have to trace it. or that's stuck. So what I'm going to do is, just as a sanity check, I'm going to turn the board off. I'm going to flip that RAM out of there, because I've checked all the address lines and data lines, they're all moving correctly. Take the chip out, and then just have a look and see if CS RAM or pin 18 on here changes. So if this chip's fused, it will be pulling it low. But as I don't think that's the case, I think we're just looking at a crappy trace, because CS RAM there, 18, is directly connected to pin 15 on F1 4055, and we've plainly seen a signal, so I think there's just no trace. I'll check the continuity and I'll check the RAM CS line without the RAM in it. Scope probe is stuck into pin 18 on the board, and we're not moving yet. We have signalling coming out of CS RAM here. Okay, flip the board over, inspect the traces, follow it, see where I can find the break. Been around the board, had a look at all the different trace points, and I found found a dead trace between there and its origination at F1. And if you look there, I've now managed to return it back to where it should be. So, what was wrong? Okay, well, F1 here leaves and comes all the way over somewhere underneath this chip, and I kind of lose it, and it works its way back down here somewhere. But at the same time, also, it heads up this chip, the CS RAM signal here heads itself all the way up to the start of this wire link. And there was no bridge in there, but there was kind of something hanging out of like a jumper wire sort of thing, or what had been a jump wire at some point, sat there. So I've remade that connection. On the schematic over here, it says it's a valid route. It doesn't give any notes specifically about it, it just says that that is a valid connection route. And if I run RAM tests that way, then it works. I get an on-off signal. So what I'm going to do now is put the RAM chip back in the socket and reboot the board and see if that takes us any further. Well, now I can actually perform a RAM test. I'm doing a RAM short from C1000 to C7FF. And what we're going to do now is wait and see what happens. So the RAM there at that B2 is accessible and readable now. I'd rather finish doing all the RAM checks before I do a run UUT, because sometimes the fluke pod won't run the board. So I'd rather do the test with, in one controlled block. Let's go back to our list of RAM regions over here. So I've got C1000 C7FF and F1000 F1FF and F800 FFFF. So, well, it says that's okay, so let's do, what was the other one? F800 to FFFF. So, F800 to FFFF, and the screen should start to clear when I do this. Yeah, screen's clearing. Well, that's good. It shouldn't take that long for it to test that. Yeah, patterns appear. Well, that's a good test. It's not complaining. So I suppose I should see if I could write from F1000 to its other RAM region, which is F1000 F1FF. When that comes back, which that one's now come back okay. So, RAM short F000 to F1FF. That one, this happens a lot actually, that it won't let me write a yes, I remember this. But if I do a write of F052 of 00, actually that's wrong, it was right at F052 of 00, and read F052 back. Yeah, it will actually let me read. There's a kind of a walking thing, and I don't think you can read certain bits of the RAM after you get past a certain point. Right, magic time. Can we do a run UUT yet? Run a UUT. It says may need reset. Well, that's quite common. Let's press that. So why else wouldn't it run? It should run at that. Let's do a board cycle. Nope, still won't have it. Run your UT. You can read and write or RAM. Okay, well, I don't think the Fluke can actually run the ROM process, if I remember correctly. The inability to connect to F1000 to FFFF, F1FF is not isn't actually that meaningful to it. I'm going to stick the original CPU back in and see if I can do anything else with it. So I've got the CPU back in the socket and it doesn't reset. The CPU is stuck low, so I'm going to have to investigate the reset line and find out why that's happening. But I'm seeing other patterns come onto the screen, which is always a good sign. But I'm not seeing the watchdog barking, so I don't know what's happened with the CPU reset. Investigation continues. Right, so let's investigate the watchdog circuit, shall we? So the watchdog circuit is basically controlled by this LS161, which is a counter. It counts to 15, and if the I think that's the ripple carry, if that ends up being high, then this goes over here to this inverter chip, which is actually an LSL4 inverter, which then becomes low, and then it pulses the micro reset line. It's effectively the same as pressing on the switch. What we're seeing is the reset line not actually moving. Now this is the 161 seems to be fine. What I always do is work sort of backwards into a circuit when it comes to like this, is the watchdog barking. So if we show you pin 13 of D8, so at the moment we've got garbage on the screen, and I show you pin 13 of D8, which is that one. And you look at the scope, see it's barking, it's going woof, 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 reset, reset. So it's holding it low and then coming high. And that's exactly what's supposed to happen. And on the inverter output, we've got absolutely nothing. Now notice that when I kind of touched the two together, then momentarily it cleared the screen and things like that. There is a Schottky diode straight after it. I can't see that being bad. I very much doubt it. So what I'm going to do is I have an LS04 chip here. I'm going to put this over the top of D8, which is that. This doesn't work all the time, by the way, this method. But immediately, what I see is that. Can you see that's jumping? That's something it wasn't doing, which tells me something new is going on. Now, if I look at 13, which is that one, I can still see it barking, right, which is exactly what it was doing. Look at pin 12. Pin 12 is now high, but it's kind of still flickering. I bet if I put the scope onto trigger capture, it would actually see it go low. I can see it moving on the scope. I don't know if you guys can. But that definitely is classic watchdog bark, bark, bark syndrome. So the CPU was not getting 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Pin 26 there on the CPU. Sorry for not showing you that. So at the moment, it's still showing us low at the CPU, but I can see it kind of starting to move. 2, 21, 22, 23, 24. Let me do this again. 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26 there on the CPU. Well, it's the only reason it would actually be trying to, and it is trying to lift, is that. Just a fraction. So I think we've got a dead LSO4 here. Well, there's only one thing to do to prove that, and that's remove it from the board. So it's time to the soldering station. First of all, sorry about the noise in the background. Anthony's working on MS Peckham sanding it, which we're doing a video on as well at the same time. I've changed out the watchdog clear reset chip, well, the inverter from it, and now I can definitely see pin 12, which is its reset pin, which would go then to the CPU. Well, sorry, it actually goes to another part of the circuit, which I'll show you in a second. That is now toggling, but the CPU 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm still seeing that held low and it never moves. Okay, so this is everything basically being reset. So now that's a stage further on. So I've got to now look at where a signal here called U reset, which is the bit that's now being pulsed correctly through that Schottky diode. goes to in the rest of the circuit. Now I know roughly where it goes to. It goes to this chip here at F1, which is a CD4053. So I can find that really. There we go. So if I have a quick look, a micro reset there at pin 12 of F1 should be toggling now. 15. This is a 14. 1, 2, 3, 4. How many pins is this chip? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 16, 15, 14, 13, 12. So that's 12. That's U reset. And that's now toggling at that chip there. So why is pin 14, 13, 14? Well that's good. Pin 14 now is... That's very interesting. So pin 14 there is now moving, which is a CPU reset. Aha! So this chip is probably okay. Now I'm just wondering if there's some other reason why it can't, well, what other reason can it not start? So if I'm getting pin 14 output there on F1 and it's not reaching down to the CPU here at 26, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, have I got a bad trace or something? So I'll tell you what, let's get the multimeter out and have a look. Found the problem. So the problem is F1 here, it has got an output, and if I push the meter probe right up against pin 26, it works. So we've obviously got a bad connection inside this socket somewhere. It doesn't surprise me, they're only single swipe, aren't these? So I'm going to replace this CPU socket for them, and that should solve the problem. If I push in on the leg of the chip, the board will boot up. I've taken the CPU out because I just wanted to comment on it before I did the changeover. Right then, I have fitted now a brand new CPU socket, pop the CPU back in, and ta-da! It boots. Same board interface error. I'm not sure why it comes up with those graphics glitch there. That's quite a common sort of problem when you've got them on the bench sometimes, that. It could easily be to do with the ribbon cables or the seating of some of these ROMs over here or something like that. These ribbon cables that are to do with the sprites are a bit on the pants side, or it could be the fact I haven't got the same board on the back end of it, and there you go, that's quite a sort of common one. So what I'll do is I'll link up the same board to it now. Yeah, see, it's gone now, which would also mean if I go into there and turn up the, which one's brightness? Is it that one? Yeah, turn the brightness up a fraction. Doesn't come out on the camera particularly well, doesn't this one? Even though the monitor looks great. There's your sprites for that. And there's your playfield. The sprites are off because the same board isn't connected. This is very, very normal for Tron boards. I spent a long time on my own Tron board trying to fix exactly this problem. Not having the same board connected causes the sprites to be slightly off skew. I don't know quite why. But what we'll do now is stick the same board back on the side of it. That will flip the graphics back over and hopefully solve all the graphics glitch problems. I'm going to offer Simon and his crew a complete new set of interconnect cables for both ends of this. Hopefully that will solve the problem. Yeah, looks okay now. I'm going to power it off and back on again, just make sure it's not some kind of reset weird glitch. See, it sort of resets twice there. And then the glitch comes back. Okay, let's connect the other board up and see what's going on. And there we are. Put the same board back in play and all the graphics glitches all seem to disappear. The sprites are all in exactly where they should be. If that light out the way. That's the brightness on that one. Let's get a sharper picture. Yeah. All graphics seem to be fine at that point. There's an interesting thing with the board I've got, which is actually originally a Zaccaria board, is that there's like extra bits missing just in those graphics there. Okay. Last test for this would be for me to hook the same connector onto it. Now, last time I tried looking at a Spy Hunter board, I made a bit of a mess of it. I'm going to make a new little adapter board. The same comes off this connector over here, and it needs a little, it needs a pot in line with it to up and down the volume, but I think I'll just bridge the pot connectors together, which I've done with other boards, so I don't need the volume controlling circuit. Might build a little test card for that. Essentially, that's that board repaired and working. So we'll leave it to run whilst I figure out the same. But that's going to be the end of this video. I'm not going to bother. I'm not going to show you the rest of it. There is another Tron board. In fact, there's actually 2 Tron boards to come very shortly. So hope you've enjoyed this. If you have stumbled across this from a search and you like what we do, please do hit the old subscribe button. At the very least, hit the like button below. It just sort of signals to us that you like what we've done. If you want to ask us a question, stick it in the comments below, or go to the website and hit the contact button. All the links are in the description down below the video, and we'll hope to see you on the next one very soon. So for me, goodbye.